the shot really got my ass. And I'm walking to the bathroom. The bathroom is literally right there, but it's literally miles away. And I'm just trying to make it to the bathroom. I'm trying to make it to the bathroom. And this song is literally playing in my head. And I need Daddy to send me this song because that's a bit of me.
Welcome tonight, you guys. I'm Vulture Culture, and we are going to answer in this live stream whether or not the Kurzweil K2000 is a legendary synthesizer. So we've been putting the most famous and infamous synths to the test to find out if they really deserve that legendary status. So welcome, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. Can I get a scum cheers in the chat for everybody who's new? I appreciate everybody who's showing up tonight, whether it's a live stream or watching in the future. So cheers, guys. We're going to start the stream off by checking out some presets. By the way, I've sampled these presets, not all of them, but my favorites, and put them in the Legendary Synthesizer Sample Pack Volume 2. Links in the description. $10 helps me keep making videos. All of the sounds you heard in the intro were actually the samples. They weren't the synthesizer multitracked. And then from there, we'll jump into the history of this bad boy. 1991 was a really interesting year. And we'll talk about things like the price of this back then, adjusted for inflation, and then what you can expect to pay for one of these nowadays, fun facts and stuff like that. And then we'll get to the crown jewel of this podcast, the Legendary Synthesizer Test, a 12-point rubric you guys helped me come up with. And you, the chat, will get to vote on each of those questions to determine if this synthesizer deserves that legendary status. So without further ado, let's check out the very first preset. Cheers, guys. So, of course, the Wavestation had come out the year before, so you can hear that influence there. That one's called Third World Order. We have Stereo Grand, you know, and this is this sound. You just need to add some delays to it to give it that really interesting thing. Yes, this is a V.A.S.T synthesizer, a variable architecture synthesizer, and it is really, I should say right now, even if this ends up being like a 2-hour live stream or something, we'll only be scratching the surface. This is really the Hydra synth in a way of the previous era, and it is incredibly deep. In fact, Rob gave me the manual. I'm borrowing this synth from Rob, aka Swords and Synthesizers, in the chat, and this thing is fucking huge. It's probably easier if I show it here. I mean, it is a massive manual on how to use this thing. So, well, there's no way we're even going to get close, but let's hear some more sounds. Orchestra. We've got some cool bass stuff. This one I sampled Fair Breath. It's like the most beautiful high-end Fairlight Fox type sound. And a bunch of these presets, at least the ones that shipped with this, to answer your question, Sarah, we have additional content. We've got DLC, we've got the analog synths. We've got all the voice crystal cards here. Again, there's just, I hopefully we'll be able to jump in a little bit with maybe some of that stuff, but for the sake of the live stream, it might be kind of short. Let's keep going here. Let's jump. Now, Neoprophet is an interesting one. This is a virtual analog type thing, and this is one of the first synthesizers to have fully resonant digital filters, along with the SY99. The 77 came out a couple of years before. So you can even hear that we've got a 6-stage envelope going on there. I believe so, Adapt. So does it sound analog? You know, not exactly, but it might have the sweeter sounding filter between this and the SY99, which came out the same year. I believe we did a Legendary Synthesizer stream on that 2 weeks ago. So go check that out if you're interested in the difference. That synthesizer also had a really great Rhodes piano sound, but this one might have it beat. Really beautiful. Fun, yeah, some really crazy math stuff you can do, which again is over my head. The power of the synthesizer isn't really demonstrated just with these presets. We have it sounds so fucking clear compared to the previous generation, you know, like the M1s. Maybe even more than the SY99, right? I mean, the SY99 is big and ballsy, but this is... The high end is crazy. Those effects are actually Digitech effects. So I don't know if you guys remember Digitech. They put out some really great pedals, kind of the underdog compared to Boss, I would say, and they did the effects for this. I think it sounds very good. I had Digitech pedals when I was growing up playing in metal bands. So here's another analog one, Big Jupiter. It's pretty good, maybe a little less plasticky than the SY99, I don't know. Tonight I am drinking one of these Pathfinder Negronis, which is a really fun way to experience the Path. So can I get a scum cheers in the chat, by the way? Cheers, guys. Oh yeah. An interesting one, Passion Source. Kind of almost an organ pad, you know, so I think we could skip right past that. Each voice can be capable of playing its own patch, by the way, which is pretty crazy. So you don't get as much like stuttering as you change patches. 24 voices, I don't know if I said that before. Fantasia, right? So... didn't bother hiding the fact of who they were ripping off there. And I can confirm it's not just a sample of the D50 like you might find in a Proteus 2, but its own synth sound made by a sawtooth, a bell wave, and a sine wave, which is interesting. You can see the key map info there. Probably can't see it on the stream just because of the lighting. But what's interesting about that is it's PWM on the original patch. So let's just keep moving here. Marcato strings. Let's keep going. You know, that type of things. If you want to do some tropical house type stuff, all this stuff sounds very good for... This one, big mono bass, is actually pretty ballsy. Jeremiah 16:4, and the Lords did say, I nailed it on the K2000. Too good. But this type of sound, it's like a high fidelity M1 in a weird way. I sampled this one, 2000 Odyssey. Really kind of cool. We're going to just keep ripping through here. Winvox, just really good. Vectoring is a very pretty one. Actually, very good presets for the era. Here's another one. Yashnu, welcome. MIDI Alchemy, welcome. Stereo sweeps, which should give us an indication. A little of that filter resonance in there. Glass waves. Let's keep on moving on here. Utopian comp. You got plenty of that type of thing, right? I don't know. How many of us are really using that shit nowadays? Somebody is. Perk organ. You might know this one. I actually sampled this one because, unlike on the original M1, you do get a different tone, like... What was it? Those are the notes for Robert Miles's Children, and it's got like a resound built in there, which is kind of cool. It's a different version of that. So if you just play it fast, it's almost original, identical to the original. But when you hold it, it actually is kind of different. Death to Voices is a really interesting patch that uses a amplitude modulation. So let's check this one out. What an interesting patch. Rayon Dreams, welcome. How's it going? Pretty crazy shit. Definitely some cold virtual analog-y stuff if that's your cup of tea. Can I get some Scum 6 in the chat? Ethereal Strings. Actually, I think I was clipping on that one, so let's try it again. I think this would win the filter sweetness wars when it comes to the SY99. It's a very, in a weird way, it's very similar to the SY99. That synth, of course, is more focused on 6-operator FM as well as running samples through FM, which is pretty crazy. But let's see, let's keep running through these. Wonder Synth bass. Stevie Wonder apparently good at doing the industrial bassline thing, which is pretty sweet. Let's keep on running through here. There's an Alaska patch, which of course was recreated on the SY99. But with a lot more filter modulation. What was it? Something like that, the original riff. Press for Thunder. Something in there. I don't know if maybe that one's modified. I think there should be a little hit in here. Deep Atmospheres is beautiful. It's like the best of the Proteus series where you've got those really great samples, but then it's also kind of Wavestation-y, which of course I'm going to have on the top of my list of synth sound type things that I'm into. Brass sounds. You know, if that's kind of what you're going for. And, you know, it's pretty good. It's not bad. I don't think it's bad. I sampled this one, Tranquility. I thought it was really cool sound. Very cool. Moog bass. Assuming that's a Moog. Yeah, Moog type sound. What else we got here? One of them. You know, gotta have one of those. So nice to actually have the synth in front of me. Before when I was, you know. What is it? You know, that type of thing. Little of that action. There's so many good ones in here. I feel bad. I'm just kind of running through them. I have missed the chat. I haven't been keeping up with this. Love Buffalo Trace. Was Aftertouch for Thunder, so let's just go ahead and go back to that and make sure I give that its justice, because that was actually used in the song. There it is. So we successfully did that. Um, let's see here. Already hit that one. Here's a cool one, Ethereal Echoes. I sampled this. You know, so many different interesting ones. I think right around Night String, was this it? Very velocity sensitive as well. So that's just a taste of some of the sounds. It's really not even doing it justice in the sense of like, we should really dig in at some point and do some of the virtual analog stuff, but we'll see how it goes in terms of time, because that's always the thing we're fighting here. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to bring some music back up here. And let's jump into some of the history of the synthesizer. So here we go. We're going to be talking about these guys. Really some heroes when it comes to synthesis. So, 1991, Kurzweil Music Systems is an American instrument company founded in 1982 by Ray Kurzweil, Stevie Wonder, actually, and Brian Chikawalis. I'm probably saying that wrong. He was a software developer. And the partnership grew out of Ray and Stevie Wonder's collaboration on a reading machine for the blind, which is super cool. And the shared goal of bringing acoustic realism and sophisticated digital control into a playable instrument. The first major K-synth that broke ground was the K250, and that was 83-84, and it was a sampler. And it was a little expensive and stuff, but it really proved that they could set out to create a next-gen workstation that didn't just play samples. It lets you reshape them, actually, at a deep modular level. And that's what's really going on in the K2000. What sets it apart is it's more or less like a modular synth, like an Oberheim Expander Matrix 12, but we're using samples as a starting point. Scott Frankfurt, credited with creating the V.A.S.T system variable architecture synthesis technology. It's an algorithm-based modular signal path that lets you reorder DSP blocks, pick filter types, and derive complex modulation via funds, which are math functions. Instead of a fixed rompler path, the K2000 lets you choose algorithms per layer, combine keymaps, ROMs, or your own samples, and run resonant digital filters that were fully resonant. Again, no one had really pulled that off except for Yamaha with the SY99 series. 99 came out the same year as this, so they were really on the cutting edge, and I think had maybe a little bit of an edge in terms of filter sweetness, but the FM stuff in the SY99 is really cool too. It took over a decade for most of their competitors to really match this level of complexity. And there were a bunch of models of the K2000. There was the K2000, the original, 6 audio outputs, main, stereoable, and 4 assignable. It accepts PRAM and ROM expansion boards, sampling via an optional board. Then there's the K2000R, which is the rack mount version, 10 audio outputs total, main, stereo, and 8 assignable. same options as before. K2000S and RS keyboard rack versions with sampling installed from the factory and 2 megabytes of sample RAM. Then we got the K2VX, fully optioned keyboard, expandable ROM sets. It added the orchestral and contemporary blocks for 24 megabytes versus 8 MB stock. New presets derived from the K2500. Then there's the K2VXS. And it just keeps going. There's the K2000 VP, which is the V.A.S.T player base models. Basically has the updated presets, 2 megabytes of sample RAM, sampling not included, but you can add it. So it's pretty crazy, just right there, everything that went into this guy. And yes, like people were saying, Ray Kurzweil is a legitimate genius. I think the keyboard's very good on this. Sean, I mean, it's good. I think it's good. It's very soft. It's very nice in that way. I don't know, where I would rank it. I'm not really a keyboard snob. A lot of really cool people use this. So, of course, Robert Miles used this on Children, which I did a cover of in the beginning of the stream. Really just one of the most iconic dream dance music tracks of all time. Rick Wright from Pink Floyd, of course, used this guy. Jordan Rudess, Depeche Mode, Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran, Bon Harris from Nitzer Ebb, Wumpscut, Frontline Assembly, KMFDM, Nine Inch Nails, Massive Attack, and the Postal Service. So you can see a lot of the industrial bands really adopted this as their own. And of course, our own Angel Spit here follows in that grand tradition of industrial artists that get down with the K2000. So I want to talk real quick about what the market was like at the time. So there was the K2000. It came out for about $3,000. The SY99 came out the same year, had a bigger key bed, 71 keys, 76 keys, something like that. And it came out for like $4,000. So it was a lot. Comparing the two, just in terms of like how this is great, but the SY99 does feel more premium, I would say. The 77 came out 2 years before. You've got the JD-800 behind me. That bad boy, that came out in 91 as well. And that synth really, I think, even though it didn't do as well as they were hoping, it did eat up a lot of the digital synth market because it was cheaper than this, and just by a little bit. But more than that, it had all the faders on it, 59 faders, I believe, which gives it quite a lot of chutzpah as far as it goes. And then the Korg had followed up with their Wavestation and the M1 with the Korg 01W, which is a really cool synth I'd love to check out, but to my ears doesn't sound as high fidelity as the K2000, and it didn't have a resonant filter. Neither did the Wavestation. So with that in mind, Korg was really lagging behind in a weird way. They had such success with the M1, but then they just sort of kept cranking out M1 synths, style synths, without really updating the filter until after everybody else. And then because this is a sampler too, essentially, it's competing with the Akai S1000, which came out in 1991, which is pretty pricey, but it was a pro 16-bit stereo sampler. So that was a big kind of jump, sort of like the Emulator 3 was from the Emulator 2, where you start to get, that full CD quality audio, right? Roland's S750 came out in 91 as well. It's a trim cost sibling of the S770. The EMU Emax, can I get a scum cheers in the chat for the Emax 2? They were a little more expensive than this, but it was a 16-bit successor to the Emax and kind of has that famous EMU crunch to it. So yeah, very, it's a pretty good thing. I think Carl's used the K2000 all over a lot of the early records, but of course I'll let Carl speak to that. If I could be wrong, I don't want to be speaking out of turn here. But yes, the digital filters on the Emax 2, that's right. Only the Emax 1 has those glorious SSM filters, but they're both good. As I mentioned earlier, really had trouble finding fun facts for this particular synth, but the effects engine was actually licensed from Digitech, which is the same core as their DSP 256XL. So their reverbs and choruses and stuff sounded pretty good. And let's talk about some modern alternatives. So, of course, Kurzweil's still making synthesizers, and they've recently announced sort of like a going back to their glory days, because this is certainly the synth that I think is most thought of as the classic Kurzweil synthesizer. So there's now the K2061 and K2088, which is just the key bed count, right? And it's sort of their modern version V.A.S.T synthesizer. So they're still carrying on this legacy, and these synthesizers I think were announced last month, you know, so there's still a lot of life in them. A lot of the people over in the Art of Rock podcast, which you should check out over on Angel Spit's channel, have said that the Hydra synth is in a lot of ways like the K2000 in the sense that it's got all of these algorithms, mutators, and stuff. It really lets you do so much and kind of have a flexible architecture that most synths don't. So as far as hardware synths go, I think the SM is sort of like the modern Hydra synth. I'm kind of borrowing that from you guys. And then when it comes to what like plugins would work, I would say that there's a few like all-in-one synths, like UVI Falcon is one. We've got Steinberg Halion 7, same thing. Yeah, Crankhouse's heaps of K2000 and modular. That's really cool, Coder Frog. I want to hear what you have to say about it once you've got it. I actually think Omnisphere 2 would be my recommendation as far as like if you want something that's got all of the sampling you could ever want to do, but you can manipulate it with filters, basically treat it like it's a synth in every other way. I think that would be a really good one. Yes, Red End is a badass album, Todd. So let's talk about the street price now. So the street price is determined by averaging the 3 cheapest synths in good condition. So every key, knob, and function working. I don't mind a little Battle Scar, a little Patina's kind of nice actually. Or the lowest third of the used market on Reverb with the shipping included. Now this one was kind of tough because there weren't many with shipping available, and I felt like the price was a little high. So the way I did it was I added $200 for shipping, which is a pretty generous amount, to kind of figure out what it's worth. Now, I'm sure a lot of people in the chat will be like, yo, on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace near me, there's a K2000 for less than what this street price will be. And that's awesome. Jump on it, basically. But as far as if you want to order one of these bad boys off of Reverb, and then there's like the companies that price their shit really high, so I threw that out. The street price for this is about $950 with shipping. You can get them cheaper though, sometimes locally, so just keep that in mind as we talk about this, okay? So the initial price for the synthesizer was $3,000, and just to talk again about how fortunate we are living in the golden age of synths, if we adjust that for inflation, that's $7,100 for this synthesizer, which is a lot of money. I think it might be worth that in that time, because like what else could do this if you were really willing to dedicate yourself to learning this synth, right? But it's not cheap. So a street price of $950 for one of these nowadays means it's devalued by about 87%, which is what we've come to expect from looking at the test. There's a lot of synths that are right around that 85% devaluation range. So I don't know. What do you guys think of that price? Do you think I'm in the ballpark? Yeah, like $190, $486 on eBay. So I think that's one of those things. Yeah, you could get them for $200. Yeah, there's one by me for $700 nearby. So that would be, $900 with shipping. So it's not too far off of my street price, but you can find deals is what I'm trying to say. That $7,000 feels right. So let's talk pros and cons. So who is this synth for? Let's talk 3 positives. The way I like to do it is, instead of like positives and negatives, I like to talk about like 3 people I think the synth's for and 3 people who I think should skip on it. So who do I think this is for? This is for someone who's willing to dedicate the time but reap the reward. The distortion in this, monstrous. There's so much to this synthesizer that takes you way, way, way beyond just what we heard in the presets are fine. They're actually very good presets, but again, go back and listen to Crank House by Angel Spit and you'll hear, wow, this doesn't exactly sound like what I just played you, does it? This is also a great synth for the vintage digital snob. So if you like the sound of vintage digital filters and crunchy resonance, this has a wonderful sound. It really just does. And then for a very long time, this was kind of like the gold standard of samplers. Like everybody was using these because they're super reliable. They're built like tanks. And, they're so expandable. And like we were saying earlier, you could just keep going with these. They're so powerful as far as synths go. So let's see here. The newer 2700 is 3,300. Yeah, wow. So here's 3 people I don't think the synth is for. If you're a hands-on control Neanderthal, like I can tend to be sometimes, I like having my hands on the knobs and just, there's the filter, right? This isn't that. It's not supposed to be that. It could never be that and be as powerful as it is. There's also going to be, analog purists who are just, as good as this sounds, I don't think it sounds analog. I actually think if you're ranking vintage digital synths, I think that the warmth of the D50 might have it beat, but I haven't really had the experience with this. I'm just going off the presets. So for all I know, I could be speaking a horrible, blasphemous lie. But from my years, just checking it out, I think that the D50 has a really, but not fully resonant filter. So, and then another person I don't think this is necessarily for are the preset playboys out there. The guys who just want to pull up the sounds and go. Yes, it can do that. Yes, you can buy the floppies or SCSI them in or whatever. I don't know. Does this have a SCSI port? We were talking about SCSI earlier. You could get the sounds in it, right? And just go and just use that. And that's cool. But I think really this synth rewards those who put the time in to really learn it. And that's where you're going to get the benefit. I think if you're just going with the presets, the truth is Korg M1 has some similar, lot like darker, less fidelity sounding sounds, but like the Wavestation sounds good, kind of in this neighborhood. In Sonic TS10 or 12, kind of in this neighborhood, sounds really good. The D50, JD-800 sound really good. So there was a lot of stiff competition at the time. I wouldn't buy this synth if you were just like, oh, I'm just going to play the sounds. Because in a weird way, I do think some of those other synths had kind of more iconic presets. Although these sound really good. I don't know, I'm kind of talking in circles on that one, but I just thought I'd give you my thoughts on that. I don't know, what do you guys think? Yeah, you have to have the SCSI card. Should never judge a synth by its presets. I agree with that. So the presets are somewhat general MIDI cheesy, Swords and Synthesizer says, because they wanted to catch the wider market. Yeah. So, how do I get to Carl's presets? How do I do that, actually? Because that would be fun to check out. Because I know we can get there. Let's see. Master. Nope, that's not what we want. Disk. Current disk floppy. I don't have a floppy in there. I got that analog floppy disk there. I think you were saying that earlier. quick access. Let's see. Setup. We've got Megaforce, Modern Keys, Classic Octaves, Total Orchestra. Person. Yeah, all the presets are right here. Well, they're kind of different though. Interesting. And then we're on the program page. Yeah. Oh, ask Carl for his. Okay, so we'll have to we'll have to check that out another time maybe. Okay. I think it's that time. I think it's time for the Legendary Synthesizer Test. So, now it's time for the main event, the Legendary Synthesizer Test. This is a painstakingly devised series of 12 tests created with the help of you guys to see if a synthesizer has what it takes to be called legendary. I'm setting up my timer right now. Here's how it works. For a synthesizer to earn the title of legendary, it needs to score 12 points or more. If it scores 10 or 11, it's iconic. 8 or 9, that's classic. 6 or 7 is respectable. 4 or 5, the synth is just mid. Anything less, and we're diving into dubious or even impoverished territory where synths gather dust in the back of the studio. So how do we score? I'll read each question aloud and then post a poll in the chat. Yes means the synth always passes the test, and no means it's out of tune with our expectations. You'll have 1 minute to vote on each question. You, the chat, get half a point for each question, and I contribute the other half. So if you love or hate the synth, let your voice be heard. The last question counts for 2 full points. Let's see if the Kurzweil K2000 can filter through the competition. Are you ready? Let's start the test. With our first question, the John Hammond test. Did this synthesizer bring innovation to the industry or move synthesizer technology forward? We've got 1 minute. Let's go. Over here, let me go ahead and pull this up too. Boom. Yeah, so we can keep track of it for you guys. 1 minute on the clock, guys. Did this bring everything? There we are. "30 seconds left. What do you guys think? 87% right now are saying yes. How many people think that there wouldn't be, synths wouldn't be the same today if it wasn't for this? I'm just curious. I think this is definitely like a scum snob synth. You know, like it's our type of synthesizer. Not necessarily underrated, but beloved because it could do things that other synths couldn't do. You know, that type of thing. That was our minute. 87% of you guys said yes, and of course I'm going to say yes too. It's kind of a definition of a John Hammond synth. The training day test. Is this synth straightforward enough for a beginner to learn? I'm very curious what you guys are going to say. 1 minute on the clock. Does anybody dare say yes? Mode Man says, I believe that 100%. I think so. I think it did push the industry. For sure. 73% right now are saying no. I mean, I'm going to spoil it. I don't always like to poison the well, but I'm not going to vote that this is a beginner synth. This is like a, you know, kind of reminds me of the Matrix 12 in that you're going to have to put in the work. It doesn't just give it to you. When you turn on an init preset on the Matrix 12, the filter isn't even hooked up. No, it is, but the envelope isn't hooked up to the filter. You know, it's like that. They're trying to get you to get into the mindset of a modular environment, you know. Yeah, Derek, Crystal Visions. I think the spirit of the test is not just playing it. 71% of you guys said no, and I agree. It's just not that. Can the synthesizer, the Daniel Day-Lewis test, can the synth deliver an expressive performance with features like velocity, aftertouch, arpeggiators, sequencers, or MPE? This one's really interesting. Daniel Day-Lewis, can you deliver, you know, an expressive performance? For me, what I'm seeing here is pitch wheel, mod wheel, aftertouch. That feels tight for this test. I don't know if I can vote yes on that. Hard to say. A little hard to say. George G's was a preset Playboy. I love it. Yeah. Yeah, I think what we're saying is V.A.S.T. 96% of you guys said yes. Am I missing something? Keyboard Magazine voted the K2000 greatest synth ever made for 3 years running. That's awesome. It does respond to poly aftertouch. Well, that makes sense because each synth program can be its own thing. So yeah, that's usually your indicator that it will work with poly aftertouch. That's pretty crazy. 90% of you guys said yes. I'm a little on the fence with this one, guys. I don't want to be contrarian. Does it, for me, I think I'm at the point now where mod wheel, pitch wheel, aftertouch isn't enough. Does it get it? Because it responds to aftertouch. Fisk, yes it is. It's definitely the downward spiral. Pitch, yeah, see, like, pitch strip would be nice. Something. I don't know. I can't believe like 90% of you guys said yes, and I'm considering saying no. Generally, I might disagree if it's like 60-40 or something. Yeah. No, yes, adapt. No disrespect there. I understand, like, I am not versed enough on this. It's more that I just want to get this back to Rob, who was so kind to lend it to us. So you can use Data Slider Controller 6 for performance as well. Okay. I'm going to narrowly pass it. Narrowly. For me, I would like to see one more thing with that you could interact with to get a little bit out of that. Expression pedal can do heaps. MIDI CCs, I don't know. For me, MIDI CCs are great, but now we've left the instrument. You know what I mean? We've gone to something else. I'm trying to vote based off of that. But because of the overwhelming support from the chat, I'm going to go ahead and, plead my innocence. What's the word? Ignorance. And go with you guys. Vote yes, or the K2000 Mafia will come for you. The Roy Batty test. Was the synthesizer built to last with no major reliability issues or common problems? Can anybody think of a common problem the synth has? As far as I can tell, this is one of the most rugged synths ever made. And even compared to the SY99, which, famously the end cheeks like to shatter on those, like, this just feels like a fucking tank. It doesn't have that, like, frail plastic of the 99, which costs more. Yeah. A lot of people love this synthesizer for sure. 22 seconds left. 92% of you guys. Is this going to be the first? No, we've had the Monopoly as a legendary synthesizer. 10 seconds left. Let your voice be heard. Power supply issues? Is that a thing? Oh, don't plug in a SCSI device while it's on. I see. 93% of you guys said yes, and I'm going to go with yes too. Daniel Day-Lewis test is haunting me, though. You know what, guys? I'm going to retract my vote there. I know some people are going to fucking gum for me, but the truth is, I think it's just in the world of expressive synthesizers, it could use like one more thing. Maybe? Let me think about that for a second. No. It's got aftertouch. Yeah, okay. I'll give it. Velocity aftertouch. Okay. I'm going to give it. Sorry. But yeah, it absolutely is I would tour with this. The Aliens from Signs test. One of my favorite tests. Does this synthesizer avoid any major design flaws or missing key features? 1 minute on the clock. Let's go. Yeah, they survived many Nine Inch Nails tours. That's how you know they're rock solid. Adapt. Could have benefited from a wooden pitch bender. Every synth could. MIDI Alchemy, to nitpick you there, the Daniel Day-Lewis test is about expression. It's not about modulation possibilities. We have a separate test for that, the Deep Space Nine test, right? It's more about like, hey, do you have like a ribbon controller? Do you have like other ways to interact with the sound that go beyond, you know, velocity, aftertouch, pitch, and mod wheel is a very, because there isn't, you know, an arpeggiator on this, right? So it's kind of it's a low bar there. That was 77% of you guys, 74% of you guys said, 75% of you guys said yes, 76% of you guys said yes. I'm ending the poll. I'm going to agree. I think if anything, someone could argue about the interface, but that's not, you know, I'm not going to dock it there. The Elvira test. Does this synthesizer rank among the most beautiful or iconic in terms of aesthetics? Don't you guys fucking dare. Don't you dare. There's a lot of things you can say about this synthesizer. I know the Mafia's out there and they're going for it. This is not one of the most beautiful synthesizers in the world. And I like a black box synth, but this is not it. I think it's perfectly utilitarian, and I like the rugged construction. It's almost like a road case, you know, like where you're like, ah, that's a beefy thing. Here we go. Thank God. I can't believe 42% of you guys right now are lying through your fucking teeth at me. You cannot say this is, it's like the Jupiter 8, the CS80, and the K2000 is the top three. You are not, that it cannot be what anybody is saying about this synthesizer. 38% of you guys are playing games right now. Too biased. 39% of you. So that's a no. Everyone knows the most important thing about how a synthesizer sounds is how it looks. It is clean and streamlined. It's okay to like the way it looks. Like, I think the JX10, I like the way it looks. It's not the most iconic or beautiful. Yeah. Elmira Fudd looking ass synth. The Starscream test. Does the synth transform into multiple roles, bass, leads, pads, and textures without losing focus? 1 minute on the clock. This one's pretty easy, guys. I think it does it even better than the SY99, if I'm being honest. And we passed it for that, I believe. So for me, this ain't gonna be hard. I think the Wavestation looks better too, for sure, 100%. It's just a more aesthetic thing, even though they're both black boxes. Todd Phipps, I mean, I like what they're doing. I do think the 8P is an ugly synth, but it is iconic. But I think it looks good. I'd be happy to play it on stage, you know. 10 seconds left. Get your last votes in. Wow, 97% of you guys said yes. Incredible. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to have to disagree with the chat once again. I can't give it the point. I'm just kidding. Of course it gets the Starscream test. The Nostromo test. Can you program the synth easily without excessive menu diving or a programmer editor? I think y'all are gonna vote with your hearts on this one. I could be wrong. I think it's I think the layout is great. You know, what were they gonna do in 91 but this? We weren't gonna, it was gonna be 4 more years before the Clavia Nord lead came out and revolutionized everything, and then even a couple of years later with like the Yamaha EX5 and since like that, they were still playing catch up where they just added a few real-time controls and stuff like that. K5000S was like that, where they added 16 real-time knobs for tweaking. There we go. Oh man, look at the honesty. No, I love to see it. Oh my God, the K2000 Mafia is being summoned. Okay, I don't think so either. I'm glad to see y'all voted with your minds. 75% of you guys said no. I just don't think that in the spirit of that test, that shouldn't be a strike against the synth if it's a synth that you would like. You know, some of my favorite synths aren't necessarily going to do that great on this test, and a synthesizer, a sampler like the Ensoniq Mirage did amazingly on this test. It's not my favorite thing because of the interface, you know? So I think it was fair to not pass it for that, because if we pass this synth, then we're passing everything that's not the Fismo, you know? Space 9 test. Does the synthesizer have deep modulation possibilities that keep sound designers excited? This should also 100% be voted with the heart. Of course. This is like the definition of a synthesizer that, you know, keeps sound designers interested. There's a reason that, almost 35 years later, people still go back to this synth, and Kurzweil is actually coming out with like kind of a new version of this, because V.A.S.T is so vast. I hate to have made the dad joke, but you know, it is so powerful what can be done with it. I'm curious who voted no. Somebody voted no. Yeah, V.A.S.T is about technology, not ease of use, is a very good way of saying it, Swords. The edit button is like the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, we do have honest followers here, Yashnu. We got a really good community of people. Can I get a scum cheers in the chat? 97% of you guys said yes. I'm curious about how this will look compared to the SY99, actually. I haven't really thought about it. Whoa. Volume's jumping. The Han Solo test. Has this synthesizer aged like a fine wine? Let me end this poll. Let's start a poll. 1 minute on the clock. I mean, I love to see all the scum cheers in the chat, guys. I really appreciate you. I think that people are still coming back to this synth. You know, I think this is one of those synths. And I do think the interface is better than, say, something like a Wavestation, because no one bothers to program the Wavestation. There's always one person in my comments who says, oh, I can program it. But, you know, I think people come back to the synth for the sound and for the interface and the power, you know. For me, this is pretty great. Adapt, being honest, I'm going to say no, only for the reason it's not popular, which I'm happy about. Yeah. Private Pile says the new one kind of makes 2000 obsolete. So one thing about even, and I think Carl can speak to this, but even by the time they got to the 2600, it got kind of too clean sounding. Part of the love for this synthesizer, 85% of you guys said yes. Of course I agree too. This next one's kind of tough. The David Lynch test. So there's also a big part of this synth that people care about is the quality of the sound. And I think that is a reason you go to this synth. As far as ease of use, of course, the new one's probably going to be easier, but maybe not that much easier. 1 minute on the clock. Does this synth have a distinct character that left a lasting mark on the world? I'm really split down the middle on this one because in some sense, like a lot of artists did use it. A lot of the industrial bands did. But those bands were not the mainstream, you know, they never were. Even Nine Inch Nails with Downward Spiral, everybody listened to Closer, but I think it's a real kind of, I'm just trying to be as like ruthlessly honest on this one as I can with myself. It gets it for the distinct character, but it doesn't have as much character as some of the other synths. But then again, haven't really dove into the darkness of possibilities, funds, and all of that. And it sort of left a mark with a lot of bands used it, but maybe not as much as something like a Jupiter 8. 82% of you guys said yes. And I am sad to say that I'm going to say yes too. I think it did. I think it just is a narrow pass, but I do believe it gets it for what we were just talking about. Why someone would buy this instead of the new one is because it does have that David Lynch-esque once in a lifetime character that no other synth has. I agree it does have more. I think the 99 does have some, I don't know, it would be hard for me to say between this and the 99. Hydrosynth is an echo of the mark that it left. That must have been so cool, Derek. Yeah. So, the final and most important test. Do the raw oscillators and filters of the synthesizer have that magical quality? The Vangelis test. 1 minute on the clock. Do the raw oscillators and filters of the synthesizer have that magical quality? I do think it sounds better than the SY99, which I think we gave the point to. So for that, I think I'm gonna have to give it. For me, yeah. Let's see here. One of the best digital resonance filters. Yeah, I absolutely think it's got the magic in it, you know? Like, that's why you buy one of these, is it's got the magic in it. I think as soon as you get, again, to the next generation of them, maybe the K2600 is okay, but like, then you start getting really clean. Same thing happened with like the Emulator 3, the Emulator 4. They're not bad, but they're not going to give you as much of that magic crunch. I wouldn't pass those synths necessarily with digital filters and, you know, all of that sort of a thing. The Emulator 3 might have had analog filters, but you know what I mean. Sari likes the clean, classy Kurzweil sound. 87% of you guys said yes. Okay, so what does that mean? That means we are at, I'm going to give it 2. Volume jumped again. Sorry, guys. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is an iconic synthesizer. Wow. So let's go ahead and jump over to the Legendary Synths here. And let's start popping in some information. So we have our third ever iconic synthesizer. Let's drop it in at the top here. The Kurzweil K2000. And it is iconic. And it cost, what was it? $950, right? Street price. So $950. This is going to do pretty good, I think. 950 divided by, it scored 10 points. So that is $95 per point is good. It's very good. So let's plop that there. And then we got 10 points. Let's get that in there. And 950 and a devaluation of 87%. Okay, now we have to rearrange the chart because we do it by price per point in each category. So, kind of unsurprisingly, the Wavestation beats it out in terms of value, just because they made so many fucking Wavestations. You can see it has the most devaluation of the iconic synths. So 88%, 87, 81, right? The SY99 actually held its value the most. Yeah, I think iconic is fair, only because I think only a synthesizer like maybe the JD-800 that has all the knobs and faders built into it would be able to really get into that legendary status. We should do the JD-800 soon. But I think this is very fair where it belongs. I honestly feel like it should rank higher in terms of points than the Wavestation. And actually, we gave somewhere the SY99 a half point. So I don't know how it actually eked one more point. Funny to me that there's no 11-point synthesizers on this test. We have 8s, we have 9s, 9.5, 9.25, 10s, and 10.5. We have no 11s. Yes, and thank you for pimping out the sample pack. It did just go out today with the updated Kurzweil samples. So if you haven't checked your spam folder yet, you should definitely do that. So we should do a K2000 Mafia t-shirt. I think that this is fair. It's so funny to me that we've kind of got the monopoly at the top, our only legendary synthesizer. And then we have, it's an analog synth, right? Very iconic look. So it was able to pass the Elvira test. It's also got deep enough It's probably the only synth ever that I can think of that will pass both the Deep Space Nine test and the Training Day test, because it's simple enough, but also deep enough. Then straight digital synths in the iconic section, which I think makes a certain kind of sense where it's like, these were really powerful, but yeah, the interfaces weren't as, easy to use, expressive as the other ones. So, Agent OOE, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yes, there's actually even a new one out by Soren, and just very excited. I want to check it out, but I guess I kind of feel like people have. I don't know if I want to do it as a live stream, just because people are in general more interested in the vintage stuff. I've done a bunch of streams on their stuff, so. Yeah, that's the thing, is I think it kind of beats the Wavestation. I love the D50 Yashnu. So, to each their own, but maybe it does. It certainly has a much vaster potential of sound design. The D50 does still have some limitations to it. Let's have fun tonight. I like it. I wouldn't say it's I think the JX, the Super JX is actually a lot more rugged than people think. It's one of those things, when you see the JX8P and the JX10, they look kind of the same online. JX8P, definitely cheap. JX10 definitely feels premium, more like a JD-800, SX240. I'm curious. Could anybody get the? Yeah, I think the SX240 could get the 11. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Mode Man. Adapt, manipulate. The Wavestation is, well, for one thing, it's pretty reasonable. Like 650 isn't bad. I love that, Carl. If you're ever down this way, we'll figure out a way to make it worth your while. I love a good pun, dad joke. Yeah, there is some cool stuff hidden in the D50, but yeah, I think that when you're looking at these analog synths, like K3, 8P, 3P10, Prophet 600, Moog Source, they're all kind of in that same category. Then we go into the next bunch, and the respectable synths are great too, but you'll notice we got the K1, MS2000, M1, Lead 2, K5000F. So we're back to kind of digital, with the exception of the Poly 800, which feels correct because the Poly 800 is great. It just shouldn't be in the same breath as the JXs, the Alpha Junos, and the DW8000s, Poly 6s of the world. Then we get to the EX5 and the JB8000, the U20, and I just love looking at the price per points for the Casio HT6000. Sam says, my uncle let me borrow his D50. I've just started to tinker with it. I've spent the whole week playing the Messenger. I do have like a 3-hour tutorial on the D50, which is worth checking out if you want to make some of your own sounds with it, which I think is really good. Mr. Calfood, I'd love to check out a PPG on this stream at some point. We have a lot of synths. I need to catch up on Legendary Synth streams because there's so many that we've had in this studio that I haven't had a chance to check out yet. But, you know, we should have the Alpha Juno on here. We should have the DW. We should have the Kawai K4. We should have, you know, like even the D50, JD-800. Those are like benchmark synthesizers that should be on this list to help us kind of sort through it all. Adapt, I actually think it's very cool sounding. I think it sounds really good. My problem with it was like everything else about it, like literally everything else about it. The fact that you know, it has amnesia every time you turn it off, doesn't save patches and things like that. Nanya Business, how's it going? I think that someone out there would get a lot out of the Casio HT6000, but it cannot pass the Legendary Synthesizer Test over my dead fucking body. I mean, it's just the definition of a synth that shouldn't pass. And that's not just bias. I just mean, like, when you read each question, it's like, well, no. You know what I mean? Kind of like that. But there's still someone out there that I think could do some really cool stuff with the HT6000. They do sound great. I don't think the analog filter is the best, but it is analog. I really like the 4 oscillator thing, for sure. So, yes. With that, guys, I think this is a good place to call it for tonight. I know it's a little shorter of a stream, but I wanted to keep this one, how do I say this? Because I know I couldn't really do this synth justice without deep diving hard. I wanted to keep this one a little shorter, a little punchier, more to the point, just to kind of give some new viewers, you know, it's scary to jump into a video this will already be over an hour long, but hopefully it won't be 2 hours, right? You know, and that maybe encourages some more people to check it out. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for being part of my little scum family. I got just a little Negroni left to give you guys a cheers. Can I get a scum cheers in the chat? One last for the evening. Thank you guys so very much. Todd, I had a CZ1, but it was busted and I couldn't get it repaired. So I'm always on the hunt for one for that scum price, you know? I don't want to pay $1,000 for it. But I do want a CZ1. Maybe CZ5000. I bought my first K2000 for 5,200 AU. Got the second one in Chicago for 200 and my third one for free in LA. That's pretty amazing. You're very welcome, MIDI Alchemy. Thank you guys very much. I hope you find these streams fun. I certainly do. I hope they give you guys something, because they certainly give me a whole hell of a lot, and I have you guys to thank for that. So, with that, I will see you guys next week. Continue to be excellent. Don't get fucked in the bad way till I see you next.